Hi, welcome to Ben and Barry on Football. My name is Barry Sterling Mitchell. I produce the Sterling Net Point Power Rankings, which we will be using in today's Top 5 show. And my compadre here.
My name is Ben Dickerson, diehard New York Football Giants fan. The team is surging, and I'm really, really happy, and I'm ready to talk about some football.
Surging.
2 wins for us is a surge.
I can't, man. I'm a Niners fan. Hey, what can I tell you?
Nothing.
We're beating the Giants. We didn't beat the Giants, did we?
No, you
lost
didn't.
to the Giants.
Yeah.
Anywho, this is the Top 5 show. And based on the way that we take a look at things, which is through the lens of the Sterling Net Point Power Rankings, what we're going to talk about are the top 5, and actually we're going to show you the top 10, but we're mainly talking about the top 5 in net points, in points for, which is the scoring part, and points against, which is the defensive part, and the part that adds a little something to the game and really makes one of the biggest differences, turnovers. So we're going to look at turnover margins, and we're going to rank the teams in terms of that. And again, if you've never had a chance to see our show, to check out Ben and Barry on Football, first of all, you can always reach us right here on YouTube at www.benandbarryonfootball.com. That will bring you to the YouTube location. Don't forget, if you're on YouTube, that hit the subscribe button and the notification bell, and that way you'll be alerted when we're putting out our videos. So Ben, anything you want to, before we lead into it, about this past weekend of football? We just wrapped up week 11. Going into the week 12, we'll talk about that on the matchup show. But is there anything out of week 11 that you might want to mention before we start to look at those top 5?
One thing I'd like to mention before we start looking at the top 5, I don't really talk about the top 5. I don't know about that. I think there was some interesting games. Let's save that for the other show.
All right. So we are going to share this information with you. And bam, we are at the Sterling Net Point Power Rankings social media page. Let's take a look at our rankings on the net points. Now, again, net points is that difference between points scored and points given up. And the team with the widest margin of differential is number 1. But let's go down to number 10 first, and let's look at the Texans with 34 net points. And that gives you some point of reference between your powerhouse teams, who's the big dogs out there right now,
Right.
and who's still kind of barking on a little bark there.
Mm-hmm.
Number 9 with a bit of a little bark so far is the Patriots with 44 net points. And look who's ahead of them. The guy that
Not by much. Let's not forget the bye weeks are almost up. We're coming into the last bye week, but the Patriots are just coming off the bye, so that's just a little difference there between them and a team that's
well, the bye week really does help relative to or have an impact on points against or points scored, but relative to the actual differential, you've been beating them by 30. Your bye week comes, you're still beating them by 30.
No, they're where they belong. I'm just saying in respect to teams that actually played a game this past week. So.
Chargers, number 7 with 53 net points. Right above them, the Ravens with 56. And then their first week in the top 5 all season long.
Ooh, that's interesting.
The Steelers with 74 net points. So you can see a jump. There's a 40 net point jump from your Texans to your Steelers, which is just at the bottom of the top 5 there. So, I mean, that really kind of gives you some reference as to who's been playing well, who's still tripping up a little bit. The Colts are really starting to scare people. People are really thinking Luck is that he's really coming around, and he's playing well. And I understand his line is blocking excellent.
That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah. So he's not getting touched much. I don't know if he has the level of talent around him as the rest of your top 5 here. But let's go to the team that to me is probably the scarier team in the top 5 because I don't think I really know how good they can actually be yet.
Who would that be?
The Bears. The Bears,
The
99
Bears.
net points. Mitchell Trubisky. And it's funny because I thought he ran better than I thought he did in the last game, but I thought that he devolved to running more than what I would prefer a quarterback have to do.
So when you consider them scary as far as you're not exactly sure what all they can do or how far they can ascend, do you mean that offensively? But that would be my guess.
Well, again, the beauty of net points is that you're looking at both sides of the ball. And on defense, they got Khalil Mack. You know who they got.
And that's
they
why
got
I said
a
what I said.
defense.
That's why my question was
Because some teams,
that way.
you know, the thing about this season now, especially with the new rules, okay, we have historic scoring going on, right? And we're going to talk a little bit about where some of these top scoring teams are on the defensive scale, you know. So let's start with the Steelers first. Before we get to the top 3, let's look at the Steelers, for example, right? The Steelers are number 5 with 74 net points, right? In terms of points scoring, okay, they're actually number 4. So you'll see them in the next slide. In terms of defense, they're number 10. Okay, they're number 10. And in terms, and this is the weakest link actually, in terms of turnover differential, they're number 21. They're with -3. So I'm not sure. That might have been early on. Again, they gave up 5 to the Browns.
Right.
So their number over the season is still being impacted by the amount of turnovers in that first game, and that's why the Browns are still at the top of there.
Right.
But that's a team that's kind of balanced. It's kind of balanced. It's not. The scales aren't tipped too much to one side. The Rams at 107. Now we're into our 3-digit net point teams. The Chiefs at 110 and the Saints at 139. You know, and which some degree they really pushed themselves up after that beat down to the Eagles.
Well, the difference between the 3 prolific offenses that we know about, which are the Saints, the Chiefs, and the Rams, is that the Rams defense has been steadily improving, where the other 2 teams, the Chiefs and the Rams defenses, basically have not. Both of them are sieves as far as run defense is concerned, and their secondaries are very questionable also. And that's the difference between those top 3 and what makes the Saints number 1. And I would say the Saints are number 1 by a pretty good margin over the MVP frontrunner Patrick Mahomes and his prolific offense. Again, this is the net point page, so defense has something to do with this number.
Well, you know, I'm going to mention the defenses for those top 3 because defensively, none of them are in the top 5. So we won't have to worry about giving up any information. Bottom line here, your Rams.
Well, I don't know about that because the Saints.
Don't know about what?
What you just said, as far as not worrying too much about where they're at in points against,
well,
because none of them are in the top 5.
When I show the top 5, we won't be talking about them if I don't mention it now. They're not in the top 5.
That's great. So while we're mentioning it now, let me say the Saints are 15, and the Rams and the Chiefs are in the bottom 5.
Right, and you just said
That's
that
a big difference.
The Rams' defense was ascending. They just moved down because they were up.
No,
in the
I didn't say they were ascending. I said they're better than the Chiefs. That's what I said.
All right, it's on tape. We'll check it out. Rams 28th, Chiefs 30th on defense. So we've got the real wide margin here.
That's right.
In terms of that for these particular. Let's move over to defenses. We're talking defense here. Oh, and I didn't mention the Saints are 15th. So they actually,
I just said that.
okay. Then I didn't need to say that.
Are we going to points 4 now?
We're going to go to points.
Do we even need to be at points 4? Really?
Well, let's look at
the top 4.
Let's look at the bottom 5. We look at the bottom 5 because the Chargers are supposed to be able to score, right? These are teams that again defensively maybe somewhat deficient, especially when we're looking at the Falcons and the Buccaneers. Now the Patriots, they had some questionable defense. It's scary that the Bears are number 6. We were talking about the Bears. I think this is the only category where they're not in the top 5. They got edged out there by the Colts, who's in the top 5 in any category for the first time this year. So kudos to the Colts. And then look what their Steelers are. You know, so it's when you see these teams like the Rams and the Chiefs, and even the Saints, and you say to yourself, man, you know, that looks like our Super Bowl contenders. And I keep thinking about these other teams like the Steelers and like the Bears, you know, who are a little more balanced, you know, and even though I must admit, what the heck went on with the Steelers and the Jaguars? I thought the Steelers was just going to operate on the Jags, like the Jags, especially with the Steelers defense against Bortles and company.
Well, first of all, Bortles' coach doesn't trust him anymore. Either Bortles is going to get traded or the head coach is going to get fired or both. Okay? And Leonard Fournette came back. So they went ground heavy. They don't trust him throwing the ball. They feel like if they keep it on the ground, have him throw as few passes as possible and as safe passes as possible, that gives them a better chance to win.
Well, that is their winning formula.
And it kind of seemed like the defense really came to play that game, probably because they consider the Steelers game a bit of a rivalry, I think. The Steelers and the Patriots, the Jaguars really feel like those are the two teams that gave them the hardest time to get where they wanted to get.
You got to get out of the AFC.
Absolutely. They've really got their sights set on those two teams. So the defense came to play. Unfortunately, the Steelers, as we've already mentioned, are a much more balanced, much more reliable team. And even though they didn't play their best, especially in the ground game, Connor was held in check. But then Ben went crazy. So what are you going to do?
Amazing.
You know, those are the things that the Jags can't do.
So as much as I talk bad about the Saints, Rams, and Chiefs on defense against, at least the Saints are in the middle of the pack at 15, you know. But with the amount of points that the Rams and the Chiefs gave up to each other, they pushed them their own self down on the scale in the next area, which we're going to talk about. But let's just finish giving them the kudos. I'm sorry, before we move. Colts 298, number 4. Steelers 299, and now we're into the 3 and the 400s with the Saints at 378. The Rams at 389, and the Chiefs at 404. So I mean, you got to give kudos. I mean, the Chiefs, that's the kind of points that they're putting up, and that's absolutely amazing.
Those are big numbers, and people still love the Patriots. People still love the Steelers. There's I know some people that I'm close to that are Falcons fans, and these are teams that they usually have their way offensively. And if you look at the difference between what they've scored and what the Chiefs and the Rams have scored, you can kind of get a sense of the dominance that these guys are coming at when they've got the ball.
It is amazing. It is amazing. And defense still counts.
Absolutely.
Maybe it's been discounted a bit with the rules and the things of that nature. But let's look at our top 10 here. Number 10. Again, we talked about that balance, the Steelers. Okay, so they're at least in the top 10. Number 9 is the Jaguars. So that's 6-point differential there between them and them. My sleeper team, number 8 at 216, the Seahawks. The Chargers, again, that's how you stay relevant at the very least. The Texans at 205. The Texans were number 1 at one point. The Redskins at 198. They had multiple injuries on the Redskins.
Yeah, in one game, I think 2 weeks ago, they lost both starting guards and a D-back or safety.
And now they've lost Alex Smith.
And now they've lost their
and
quarterback.
They got Colt McCoy.
Colt McCoy stepping in, yes.
Stepping in. We'll talk about that on the matchup show. But that does change things a little bit if you're, when your personnel changes, what you've done in the past, sometimes it's a little harder to repeat it, whatever. But as a team, this is what you've actually accomplished up to this point. So number 4 with the Bears, again, top 5, 3 Cowboys playing some defense, 2 Titans, and the Ravens coming in at number 1.
Well, Ravens have been hanging around. They've only been beaten badly by big scores maybe twice this season. Other than that, most of the games have been close. So that's kind of keeping them alive. The Titans, again, I think they're playing about as good as they can play. But their offense, and now Mariota's hurt again, I don't know if they're going to be able to hold up. Cowboys defense is the only thing that's keeping them alive for the playoffs.
Is it Titans?
I'm not saying it's a
that
bad
bringing
thing.
in all of these generic quarterbacks. Somebody's bringing in a bunch of generic quarterbacks right now. And as a matter of fact,
Yeah, they said they were going to bring in like 3 or 4 guys, and they're leaning toward T.J. Yates or something because their backup is Blaine Gabbert.
Blaine.
You know all about him. So yeah, they're in trouble.
And again, Kaepernick's out there.
Oh, yeah, that's sad.
Kaepernick's out.
Bears
there.
doing their thing. Redskins again, defense doing his thing, but it's faltering a little bit. Texans got better. Chargers kind of
Is
hanging
the
around.
Redskins defense good enough to win NFC East?
Not with the burden that the offense is carrying. No.
Okay.
Not the defense alone. Adrian Peterson's going to have to keep on doing his thing, and Colt McCoy is going to have to surprise some people, which is quite possible.
This guy likes Colt.
If you wanted to, I do like Colt McCoy. If we're going to have, we could make a whole different show just on the NFC East alone. So we might want to temper that a little bit because there's too many possibilities.
Okay.
Too many.
Okay. All right. Points against. Ready to move on?
Yes, sir.
Last area that we like to look at is turnover differential, aka Tide. Number 10, we got the Chargers with a +4, matching the Chiefs with a +4. And again, the Chiefs, if nothing else, they have a disruptive front four. They don't do anything else, you know. They got a touchdown off of defense, you know. And I mean, guy looked like he pickpocketed, you know. Go.
Just to make sure that everybody's clear, it's turnover differential. That means the number of turnovers you've created as opposed to the number of turnovers you've given away.
Difference. Exactly.
Because I don't want people to say, the Chargers only got 4 turnovers. Wait, I know they had 3 interceptions.
Good point.
So
Great
that's
point. So, for example, if you have 4 or 8 turnovers that you've taken from all of the teams over the season, so you took away the ball 8 times, but you fumbled it or gave it away on interception 4 times, then your differential is 8 minus 4.
Your Tide
You
will
have a
be
4 turnover differential.
Absolutely.
And that's how we rank on that differential there. So can't just make those interceptions. You gotta, you know, or give, you know, make those interceptions and make sure you don't.
And
give
again,
up
real
any
fast.
interceptions.
See what the Chiefs are? Number 9. See what the Rams are? Number 4. Another reason why the Rams are better than the Chiefs. Just saying.
Well, even in last week's show, if you remember correctly, when we talked about them, and I can pull this up real quick because I actually put, as I told you, I put that out on our Twitter page.
Yes.
Where am I here? Right here, yes. So the net point bias last week, going into the game with the Rams and the Chiefs had a 9 net point bias in their favor. The Rams had a turnover margin bias of 1 in their favor. So the bias plus was only 8. That's razor thin over like 10, 11 games. And then even on top of that, when you look at the rankings on defense, last week, the Rams were ranked 17th in points against. The Chiefs were ranked 22nd. So they had a slight edge on defense, not a great big edge. It's just that the Chiefs are such prolific scorers. They put up 335 to the Rams 353 to the Rams 335. Mm-hmm. And again, last night, the Rams got scoring from their defense, you know. So that's what we posted on Twitter was that, ironically, you know, as euphoric as everybody is about the scoring and everything going on, that game last night, you know, was a scoring fest. But it was the defense that made the difference.
That is correct.
Defense and turnovers made the difference.
Turnovers, changed the tenor of the game. Every time it seemed like one team was starting to surge and kind of take over, they turn over the ball. You get a strip sack, a scoop, and a score. That flips the whole momentum immediately. So yeah.
And
defense is still important, gang.
Yeah. And to the
and protecting the ball is still important.
To the accounting, just to give a little leeway to Mr. Mahomes, 2 of his interceptions was late in the game when they had to go to the left of the field and was trying to go deep.
Were they tip passes?
I think one of them was kind of a hurried pass where he I don't know if he actually got hit, but he got hurried and the ball just didn't come out right.
I got to protect the ball.
All right, sir. Rams, number 4 with 11. Okay. Number 3, the Redskins with 12, equaling the Browns. And again, 5 of the Browns' 12 was all in one game. So they definitely fell off a little bit after the first game with the Steelers in terms of the numbers of turnovers. Because literally that would be one game. This is through 11 games. So 5 in the first game, 7 over the next 10 games.
Right.
So something happened there, and they weren't working at that same capacity. But there's our scary team, the guys that we just don't know. I mean, they can wreck plans, offensive plans.
They absolutely can.
They can wreck them.
One problem: Trubisky's hurt.
Yes. Well, we don't know if he's going to play or not. And again, we got to see what happens. He might play, might not. You're right.
He's still day to day. Yeah, you're right.
In the current matchup, we'll talk about that again on the matchup show. But so far, relative to the defense, yes. These guys are tough. So
yes.
That would be everything that we wanted to say relative to the top 5 rankings, top 10 rankings. This is Ben and Barry on football with the top 5 show. Before we sign off, I'll pass it off. Any last words, comments, questions, concerns?
No, not really. I think a lot of things are being revealed right now as far as how the rankings are setting themselves up. Again, we talked about the cream rising to the top and all that. The cream still seems to be changing a little bit as it rises in some of these categories, but again, when you look at just the net points themselves, the Saints, the Chiefs, the Rams, the Bears, the Steelers, all in the top 5. None of those teams can be considered not a serious threat to make it all the way to the Super Bowl. And if you go top 10, the Patriots are still in there, so are the Chargers. So, like I said before, the cream is rising to the top. That's so hard to say. And it will continue to do so, I'm sure. But as we get later into the season, next week marks the beginning of the 4th quarter of the season, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so we may have a little something special for you next week on that. But in the meantime,
and since I called out, I'll just do this real quick. Since I called out your top 5 or more scorers, scoring teams relative to how weak they were on defense, I didn't necessarily call out top 5 defensive in terms of their ability to score. So let me just say that real quick. As we look at the top 5, starting with the Redskins, is that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? Yes, with the Redskins. In terms of scoring, the Redskins are 27th. They've only put up 197 points. So right there, you see where the challenge is for the Redskins.
Right.
As we go up to the Bears, again, this is what makes the Bears scary in terms of scoring. They're number 6. Okay, so they're in that top echelon. Even if they're a little out of the top 5, they're in that echelon, balance across the 2, points scored and points against. As we go up to the Cowboys, who played the Redskins. Again, you look at this game, we'll talk about it in the matchup, but the Cowboys are 25th in scoring. They only scored 203 points. And they might be number 3 on defense, but part of that we know was the bye week. I think they have in their favor a little bit. Probably know they had their bye yet.
Yeah, they had their bye, but there was a week.
So bye still helps in terms of, one less point that you've given up. But the Titans, they were number 1 at 189 on defense. The Titans are 28th on offense. They've only put up 178 points again.
Mm-hmm.
Using the Chiefs as a barometer, the Chiefs have put up 404. Titans have put up 178.
Okay.
So that kind of gives you an idea about what's going on. And then the Ravens are actually right in the middle of the pack at 17 with 237. But now we've got the situation going on with their quarterbacks and what's going on with their philosophy. We'll talk about that on the matchup show. So unless you have another point that you want to make,
No, I'm good.
Ben and Barry on football, signing off.